Welcome to Nurturing Our Roots. This is your host, Antoinette. Nurturing Our Roots from Slavery to Freedom, live Zoom session with Antoinette and Karen. We're live every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. The talk show where ordinary people with extraordinary stories will share their stories right here on Nurturing Our Roots. I am Antoinette, and here's Karen.
Hi, Antoinette. How are you?
I am doing fine. What about you, Karen?
I'm making it. I'm making it.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. Glad
Well,
to hear that.
I'm looking forward to our topic tonight.
I
Um,
am too, Karen. The
yes, yes,
conversation that we're going to have tonight is much needed.
absolutely. And so tonight we're going to be talking about land ownership in the African American community. In 1910, it was recorded that Black people owned more land than ever before in history. Over 14 million acres of land was owned by 210,000 Black people. Today, we own less than 1.5 acres of land, which is pretty ridiculous. I think that as people got away from more of an agricultural lifestyle, I think people just kind of stopped valuing land ownership. And back in the day, it used to be that if you own land, you had a lot more power in the community. And I just don't think people see land ownership as valuable. As more people move out of the South and into more cities, they just didn't see land ownership as all that valuable. Even today, just getting people to see the wisdom in owning your own home seems to be an issue. So I'm glad that we're going to be talking about land ownership, and hopefully it will inspire people to take land ownership a lot more seriously. So if you are joining us for Nurturing Our Roots, please feel free to put comments in the chat room. I will be monitoring the chat room as we continue on with the show, and we will try to answer your questions as best we can as we see your questions or comments in the chat room.
Thank you, Karen. Karen, that is so important that we talk about this topic because, a lot of all of us who are looking for our family history, one of the things that we do look for is land ownership. And that's very important. We conduct genealogy research. We want not only do we look for photographs, we look for marriage records, death records, cemetery, school records, but we also want to know about the property and land. That's very important too. And if we and we know that when a family member died who owned any property, the first thing that we need to do, we look at opening up a succession, or should be opening up a succession on that person. And the first thing that we need to do is know all the heirs. So that's very important to know. And so this show is very important. Let me just take a disclaimer here. The first thing we would like for you to do is seek an attorney whenever you're talking about these kind of matters. But we're just going to talk about just basic things from the point of genealogy research.
Absolutely. Um, and so, um, what is the first thing after they seek an attorney? What's the next thing they need to do in terms of land ownership?
Karen, the first thing that most of us need to realize is who are the heirs. And we know in genealogy, we're looking for family members. We're looking for, we're trying to find our family, not only those that's deceased, but we also look for those that is living. And so the first thing an attorney would ask you, how many heirs and who are the heirs? And so that's why those funeral programs and those obituaries play a major, vital part in helping us to identify who are the heirs.
So, is it important to know? Well, obviously, it's important to know where the land is located. How does someone go about finding out where the land is located?
And now that's a very good question because oftentimes let me just say, in the 21st century, a lot of family members and heirs do not know the legal description of the property. Matter of fact, they may not even know the last name of the person that the property is in. And oftentimes I found people to be living on air property and they know nothing about the person who bought the property, when they bought the property, and where the property is at now. So that's really surprising to me, Karen, that people, we have these family gatherings on sometime the location, but we don't talk about the people who purchased the land and when they purchased the land or the property.
So if I wanted to, like if I know my family has land, I kind of know where it's located. Where would I even begin to look to find out those details that I need?
The local courthouse. You
Okay.
want to go the local courthouse. You want to go look, go to the conveyance office, and most of the courthouses have computers where you can run that person's name and see the property, and you can pull up the legal description of the property and whose name the property is in. So that's very important to know the difference between, who sold it, who owned it, when did they sell it, or if it's still in the family.
Great, great, thanks. What else? So if I find that taxes are owed on the property or that somebody has purchased the tax file, I mean, the taxes.
That happens all the time, because now some property may be homestead exempt because some of the heirs are still living on the property. But if no one haven't paid the taxes, if it's not homestead exempt and someone else has paid those taxes, a person need to go to the assessor's office and go yearly, I would say, go to the courthouse yearly to find out the status of the land, because oftentimes it can be sold at a sheriff's sale or a tax sale because nobody's checking on the property.
How do I deal with if I find that no successions were done?
Now, I'm going to tell you, most people will wait until 20, 15 to 20 people is dead. Every time a person die in the family, that person may have children. And if no succession is open up on each person, let's take, for instance, our family. Our grandmother Emma had 13 children. Now, some of those children didn't have any children, but each one of her 13 children who are now deceased, their offsprings have to open up a succession. So my grandfather is deceased. Now my mother's deceased. So a succession has to be open on my grandfather as well as my mother. And so if we don't open those successions, you cannot be put in the right heir position by not opening that succession. And I want to say that when grandmother Emma passed away in 1948, there was a succession that was open, but they didn't complete it. And in 1964, uh, it was before 64, my grandfather and a couple of his brothers picked it up and tried to complete it, but it wasn't completed. It was before 64 because he died in 62.
So right now it's still not completed.
It's not completed. And so that tells me that every generation before us, they are not taking care of the business that they should. And so it's leaving all of that to us. So when we own property, those need to be that need to be one of the conversations at the family gatherings, whether it be a family reunion or whether it be, gathering for any event, set aside 30 minutes to discuss family business. So
What if
that
nobody does anything?
it's just there. And if people don't do anything, let me just say this. Let's say if somebody owned 80 acres of land and one of those heirs decide to sell their interest in it, it can be forced to be sold because one person sold their rights. That's how important this is to learn.
Now, if the successions haven't been done
Mm-hmm.
and the last person who had claim to the property is no longer with us, then that means that there aren't any legal heirs to the property, right?
If you haven't went through the steps that it takes, but you can sell your undivided interest now.
Even if you're not legally declared an heir through a succession?
Yes, you can. Because if you show that your parents is dead,
Mm-hmm.
okay, through the debt records, and you show this, then now you're in a position to be an heir, and you can sell that undivided interest.
So I'm not saying I'm gonna do this, but
No, but it happens all
so
the time now.
so because my dad has passed away, I
I
could
was faced with that.
theoretically.
Let me tell you, I was faced with that. We was faced with that. And I remember that person saying to me, I can go to one of the heirs and buy their interest, and I can buy it all. Let me just pull up something for you to show you what I'm talking about. Let me just share my screen. Give me a minute. Let me just share the screen with you. Okay, we're there. Let me just start it. This is something good to know, and we all should know this. Air property. Okay. Oh, okay, here it is. Okay, here it is in the bottom. Okay. The problem is that if just one owner sells, real estate laws in many places may provide. No, that's not it. I really wish. Let me just find it. In the meantime, you can keep talking till I find that part.
Okay, yeah. So for everyone who's joining us in the chat room, do you have heir property in your family that is unresolved? Let us know. Let us know how you are dealing with it, or do you have questions about how to deal with that heir property in your family?
I found it. Okay, here's the problem. Here it is. Oddly, one of the few things heir owners can do without the consent of all the owners, all other owners, is to sell their portion of the property. The problem is that if just one owner sells, real estate laws in many places provide the non-hereditary owner with a variety of means to obtain the entire property, often at below market rates, a process commonly referred to as partition sale.
Wow. Partition sale. I didn't know anything about that.
Mm-hmm. And so,
I'm writing that down.
yeah, and so when we really look at it, we we owned a lot of land after the emancipation, but we're losing it. We have lost it. And we need to go back and look at how are we losing so much land. Yes, a lot of our family members migrated up north, but oftentimes they help to take care of the property back home. But
Mm-hmm.
today is it's a different standard. So we need to first of all educate ourselves, our younger people, about what it is to be an heir and what we should be doing to take care of our responsibility as adults and as heirs.
Wow. Oh, well, you told me something I didn't know. I didn't know about this partition sale situation.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, we was at that door, and I can tell you, it was a victory for me because I stopped it from happening. But I do know that one of the things that was going to be on our agenda for the family reunion to 2021 was to make sure that we take care of this matter, because most of our family members who was heirs, they are deceased. And so now it is in our hand, and we need to do something about it. We need to do something about that situation.
Absolutely. Because, I think the longer you go into the future generations where some of the young people never even saw the land.
That's right.
They don't know where they don't have any memories. They're not tied to it. And sometimes they don't have an appreciation for the value of the land and could sell it for a song.
They really don't, Karen, because number one, they don't live there. They have never lived there. Let me take it for an example. Okay, I was raised up on the homestead of Emma. You was in New Orleans. But because you're a genealogist and a family historian, you really understand the importance of holding on to something valuable like that. But let's look at a lot of other family members who, have managed to buy their own property, their own homes, and they don't have any interest. But we should, because the land, when we think about it, she purchased that land in 1896. And therefore, women didn't even have a right to buy land, but she did. And Emma had us in mind. She had a vision for her offsprings, and we are her offsprings. And I guess what I'm saying is that we should have enough respect to handle the business the way it's supposed to be handled. Because oftentimes people say, I hear family members say, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with it." Well, what they need to do is just go and relinquish their rights legally. Go to the attorney and tell the attorney that you want to just have nothing to do with the property, but do it the right way and make sure those papers are filed in the courthouse like it's supposed to be filed.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that they could relinquish their rights to property.
Yeah, well, especially when now I'm gonna tell you about what people do. They'll say, "I want nothing to do with it," but if they found all or mineral rights or something, see how fast they'll want something to do with it. But
So,
when you're taking care of the business part of it, they don't want anything to do with it.
so are we losing land and property because we're not taking care of
In masses, in masses, we're losing land all over the United States in masses, land and property.
wow. My husband's family has a lot of land in Mississippi. My oldest son has memories of going to visit his great grandmother out there. But the younger son, because there's almost 10 years difference, he has no memory of that at all. And so I could see just between my own two children uh, that there would be a difference in their connection to that family land. Now, I mean, the taxes are low on the land, and the family makes sure the taxes get paid, and successions have been done. So the land is just there in the family, but there's probably going to come a day in future generations when the young people have less of a connection to that land. And so I just hope that, people not only take care of the legal part of making sure that the land is taken care of in the family, but also connect family members to that land. Because, I think that the more our children and grandchildren have a personal connection to the land, the better it will be for those family members. Well, I see in the chat room, Rose, welcome, Rose. And your comment is a lot of relatives force others to sell because they have no interest and want the value of their part of the land. And that certainly does happen. And it just speaks to what I was just talking about, because you don't have that personal connection to it. So it's not just making sure you take care of those legal aspects, but let's do something to connect every generation to that family land, whether it's having family reunions on that land. If the land is rural property, maybe just build a little pavilion out there that has bathrooms and a nice shaded area so that you can go out there and have family reunions on the land, and people could have, the comforts of a bathroom, place to prepare food and that kind of thing. And you can take your family out there on weekends in the summertime just to begin to connect the family in each generation to the land. start talking to the younger generations about the fact that there is land. You know, a lot of times we just don't talk to our family members as much as we should. And we certainly don't talk to children about things like that. But um, your family land, that's part of your family history. And, you know, in some situations, there will be big businesses wanting to buy that family land. So if you don't help your family members to see the value of that land, they could end up getting rid of family land for less than what it's worth. Hi, Arthur. I see your comment. How do I donate and join the meeting? Well, we thank you for joining us here on Nurturing Our Roots. And as soon as Antoinette comes back, I will let her know that you want to know how to donate. I really do appreciate that. Um, uh, Arthur, do you have any family land situations that uh, have been handled well or not handled well? You know, this even includes family homes. I know we have in my family a piece of property. My grandmother passed away in 2014. And at the time of Hurricane Katrina, she and her sister and her brother all lived on that land here in New Orleans. And now all of them have passed away. All of them have passed away. And so it's not a piece of property out in the country, such as from my great grandmother Emma, but it is a piece of property here in the city. So, you know, we have to do what we have to do, even in cities, to take care of family land. Um, and so we all just have to uh, make sure that our children and grandchildren know that there is land ownership, because I'm pretty certain young people don't even think about, you know, if the house they're living in is a rental property or if it's property that's owned. I'm sure they don't even think about, well, what if something happens to mom? What do I do with that property? Well, if we do nothing else, we need to make sure that our young people know that they have to immediately get a succession done. Because the longer you wait and more generations come into the mix, the more expensive it's going to be to get a succession done.
Okay, Karen, I'm back. I do apologize. It looked like some bad weather came through and knocked everything out, but that's technology. I'm back.
That's okay.
Thank you, co-host, for pulling it through, because I'm like, okay, whenever you have something good to talk about, that's how it happens, huh?
Well, I talked a little bit more about making sure that the few younger generations have an emotional connection to the land,
Yes.
and that if they know nothing else, make sure they know what succession is, and that if something should happen to mom or dad, that they get a succession done. Because we don't talk to our young people about these things. We also have Arthur Riley in the chat room, and he wanted to know how could he donate and join the meeting. And so I told him that I will let you know, because you would deal with that, not me.
Okay, what he can do, he can contact us at nurturingourroots@gmail.com. And I will be happy to talk with him about how he can donate to help keep us going here, you know. So thank you, Raleigh. Any donation would be greatly appreciated and help us really do some new things that we would like to do for our show. Thank you.
And Arthur mentioned that I was talking about my grandmother's house, not just land. We also have to think about houses in urban areas as well.
That's right.
And I mentioned how my grandmother and her sister and her brother lived in that home after Katrina, and now they've all passed on. And I'm
Oh,
so sorry for your loss, Arthur. He lost his brother in Hurricane Katrina as well.
yeah, we're so sorry for that. And Karen certainly put the Gmail account into the chat room.
Okay.
And you know, losing a family member. And before we go any further, I would like to say to everyone, you know, I know this is a very tough time for families dealing with the COVID and losing family members, and everybody's going through a really tough time. But we will get through this, and certainly with the loss of family members. Some families have been burying two and three family members. And let me just say this, that this type of thing, we will get through it. And I know it's very difficult, it's very challenging, and it's very hard, but stay strong and we will get through this difficult time. I must say, last year I lost 38 people that I know. 38, that's a lot of people. Never in my lifetime would I have ever dreamed that such a number would be there. And Karen, you sort of answered one of the questions that I really wanted to talk about. How can we change this? You just answered that question. Talking to family members, talking to the younger generation, and those who do not have an emotional attachment. Some people will sell it at a drop of a bucket because they have no emotional attachments to it. But if so, try to sell it to someone in the family that has that emotional
Hmm.
attachment to the land, you know,
Absolutely.
and try not to sell it outside of, you know, the family, because it is an emotional attachment for somebody who have lived on the land. The land gave
So
them food, you
think
know.
about what your ancestor went through to buy that land.
Mm,
I always think about my husband's grandmother and grandfather, how they were able to buy 60 acres of land in Mississippi in the 1930s. You know, they were picking cotton. You know, they were rural farmers,
mhm,
and
mhm,
they were able to buy land that they then farmed and sold vegetables from that land. That land provided a living for
mhm.
them.
And
Thankfully,
shelter.
that land is still in the family.
Mhm,
Taxes are being paid on it. But the younger generations don't have an emotional connection to it. I remember the land I have an emotional connection to it. But
yeah,
we have to get the younger people involved, take them out to see the land,
mhm,
at least put some kind of structure on the land, even if it's no more than just a little pavilion with bathrooms and a little kitchen area. So at least you can go out there and have a little family reunion, you know?
mhm, mhm. You know what I found for us? It was some of the older family members was the ones that was really um, difficult to deal with.
Mm.
Um, I believe in going by just what the last secession said, to divide the land with all of her heirs. That was very important to me. And although we lived on the land, but the land didn't belong to my grandfather. The land belonged to all of Emma's children. And that had to be made very clear. And therefore, um, I don't want land to divide the family up or property, because sometimes that can happen with family members. But the first thing that we have to do is agree to disagree, and it's okay to disagree. You know, we're not all going to be in the same agreement, but as long as we don't fall out with each other, you know. And I hear people say all the time, you know, when a person die without a will, or sometimes, you know, we just don't take care of business like we should. And I just want to say this: we have, our children will end up with nothing if we don't take care of business. That's even for the own, for whatever you own, whatever anybody own, you still have to make plans for it, because um it's best to consult with an attorney, you know, have a family attorney to advise you on what needs to be done for your family. When we're younger, we don't think about those things, but as we get older, we should think about, what do I want to happen with the house? What do I want to happen with, personal property that you have? That's very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so what happens if nobody does anything?
Somebody has, well, it just sit there. Let me tell you what happened. It'll eventually be sold. We'll lose it. If nobody do anything, when all of the ones who do know something about the property pass on, and the younger generation who know nothing about the property, it'll be sold.
Hmm.
Because first of all, they know nothing about it. Something you said earlier just now was to at least know where the property is at. That was one of the things that was on our family reunion agenda, was to take a trip to the homestead. For all our family members who live up north, who had never been down south, we was going to take a van of family members to walk on the homestead of Emma Mead Harrell.
I remember when you first asked me to be a part of the show, you had me come out to see the land.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
don't know if you still have that picture, but you had
I
taken
do.
pictures of me walking on the land.
I do. And you know what, Karen? Let me say this to you. I was not just taking you there just to take you there. I wanted you to know where it was at, because you're an heir. And I feel like if there was anybody who would be concerned if something happened to me, I knew it would be you. I
Hmm.
know that it would be you. And
Yeah.
that's the thing too, because I don't like what I have experienced with family when it came down to dividing the land. I thought that the best thing for us to do was to put the land in the LLC, because there's just too many people that's deceased, and we should have considered that. The lawyer said it was a wise thing to do. But if you have one or two people who disagree, and they don't even know why they disagree, and they just, sometimes they can be that way, not because they have looked into it and have studied why is it feasible for us to put it in the LLC. They just wanted to, just, I don't know.
So can you explain why putting it into an LLC
I
is
can explain
something
to
that could
you
be done?
what
Should
the
be done?
attorney said to me,
Hmm.
that because we had so many people that was deceased and so many successions to be opened, and if a person had a family member who was deceased and didn't own anything, they would not want to pay $3,000 to $4,000 to open up the LLC. Now, when we really look at it, we have over 35 successions that needs to be opened.
I just thought about it.
Yes,
Even since then, since we went out there, so many more people have passed away.
which is your grandmother, your great aunt, my
Mhm.
mom,
Yeah.
my mother's brother. And that's just a few people. That's
Mhm.
not the other people, up north. But there's so many that we can't even, if we count them, I guarantee you the numbers will be like 30 something, 40 something people. And for those people who have had children to pass, and their children is now the heirs. So, and I'm talking about first cousins. So if, like your brother who passed, right? If he had children, they're the heirs now.
Mhm. And now with COVID and, seeing sometimes, mom or daddy and maybe one or two of the adult children all being wiped out
Mhm.
within weeks of each other, days of each other.
And let's look at it like this here. A lot of family that live in the city area, they don't know when they have to come to the rural area. They don't know that. So the least that we can do is hold on to the land. That's the one thing. Somebody said, I hear people say this often, God is not making any more land. So we do know that Alexander and Robert purchased 200 acres of land. I haven't seen a trace of that land. And so what we have left, we need to maintain it.
Yeah, and these are crazy times we're living in. You know, they can blow up the cities, But if you could retreat to your land in the country somewhere, at least you'll have something,
And plant yourself a garden, like, see that the reason it is valuable to me is because we lived on the land. The wood from the trees gave us heat and cooked the food. There was a pond on the land. There was a water creek on the land. So
And I don't think people realize you could actually make money from, if you have enough land, you could sell some of the timber off the land to help provide for, definitely take care of the taxes easy.
mhm, mhm.
Easy selling the timber.
Right. I said this. I said after this COVID, we all need to go and look at the land because it's growing up and we need to do something about it, Karen. Those we need to do something about it because see what I find in families, one person would get on the phone and call someone and say, oh, look, I wouldn't touch that if I was you. And the other person will not even investigate why. And before you know it, you don't have anybody, I don't want nothing to do with it. You hear that too, Karen, you hear that too much.
That's
I don't want
crazy.
anything to do with it, huh?
That's crazy.
Yes, it is crazy. It's not wise to be that way. You understand what I'm saying? We supposed to. Let me take this earring off because this looks like I don't have a ring. Just tie this one earring, this dingling. All right. Okay. So we can't keep on losing. Let me tell you something. What's embarrassing? It's embarrassing that we are the ones that know how to read and write. But if you look at a lot of those land documents, what do you see? They made them up.
Texas.
You see it.
Antoinette, we have Adrian Michelle in the chat room. She said they still have their family land since emancipation.
Hey, you see, I'm clapping for you and your family. That is beautiful. Congratulations to you and your family.
That's quite a feat to
yes, it is.
still
That's a
have
celebration
land.
in itself.
And that's showing such respect for the ancestors.
Yes, it is. We don't, Karen, next week you and I'll be talking about the importance of maintaining the graves. And the reason that we're having these conversations is because just what you said, we are showing no respect for our ancestors when we carry on like we carry on. We make 20 times as much money as they had in 1 year. We can buy Louis Vuitton purses. We can go, some people pay $300 for a concert ticket. You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But they made that sacrifice to give us something. And here we don't even want to remember their name.
Wow.
We are embarrassing to say the least.
And so many of us have so much more, I'll just call it book learning, than our ancestors ever had the opportunity to have.
Yes.
But that book learning has not transferred into common sense.
Well, Carter G. Woodson had another name for it. He said the educated fools. Because let me tell you something. Land was the one thing that our ancestors dreamed of because they know that was the next step to freedom. To grow their own food, to build their own home, to dig their own water well, to be, now you talking about self-sufficient, they were self-sufficient.
I think about how much organic vegetables I buy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could have your own little organic farm and sell, take what you need for yourself and sell the rest.
If you listen to anyone that went through the Great Depression, the first thing they'll tell you is they didn't know anything about they knew that it exists. But if you look at the people down south versus the people up north, the people up north was in line with a bowl in their hand for some soup or whatever they was giving out. But the people in the south, they had food. They didn't know anything about the Great Depression as far as like buying sugar and coffee, but that was it, a little flour. But for the most part, they had food on their table.
Well, I mean, even my father-in-law died in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, before Katrina and after Katrina, once we got them back in town, he always had a little garden
Yeah.
back behind his house.
Mm-hmm.
And he all the beans, crowder peas and beans and collard
Yes.
greens and okra, all of that kind
Exactly.
of stuff,
And they
they
canned
grew.
and they preserved. You see, so like I said, it doesn't matter how much education we have. We're disrespecting our ancestors when we do two things. One, and what really bothers me is when people live on the land and don't even know how the land was accumulated, who purchased the land, and the person's name. Every time they walk out their house and they don't have to pay rent or buy land, they should be given honor to those that purchased that land for them.
It makes me wonder just how many people are out there living in a house,
Mm-hmm.
living on land in rural communities, and all they know is that's where their mama lived or that's where their grandmother lived. And when that person died, they just continued living there.
That's all they know because nobody is talking about it. No, no one is talking about those adult things that we should be talking about in this day and this time. It's crucial that we start to really have some substance at family reunions, not just meet and greet, but there's some things that we need to take care of. And, identifying the land is important. And so I do want to point out that every family who own property, they need to seek an attorney. If the family do not have an attorney, y'all, everybody need to get together to retain an attorney. Um, and first of all, go to the courthouse and pull all the documents you can and make sure, find out from the attorney if you need to have the courthouse seal on those documents to say that they are authentic documents from the courthouse. Because some people won't accept if it's just a copy. So you need to look at getting a seal on it. Um, why are we delaying the process of doing that? Many reasons. One, we don't really care. Two, I don't live there, so it doesn't matter to me. You know, I didn't work for it, so therefore it doesn't have the same meaning. And so I would say to anyone, think about, like you said a few minutes ago, how hard it was for them to work hard to purchase that land.
And I know that a lot of family reunions have been postponed because of COVID, but I am certain there will be many, many family gatherings as soon as we get out from under this virus. And because so many people have been lost during this pandemic, one of the first things that should be done is having these family meetings to talk about the legal status of any family property,
Mm-hmm.
so that we could just get on the right track moving forward.
I think so, Karen. I think that you know we all must think about our untimely debt. That's something that we should think about. We should think about wills. We should think about putting these things in place. We should think about going through our inventory, talking to making our own funeral arrangements if we want to, or looking at your policies at the house, because the one thing that our ancestors didn't believe in, unless it was really, really a hardship. Today, people don't mind doing GoFundMe's to raise money for a funeral. I believe that we should always keep those things in mind because one thing about our ancestors, most of them, they kept them little $2,000 policies, you know. But I think we have to discuss these things, you know, um, the land, everything, the house, when if someone, and we see it all the time, if someone passed away, and there's a house and you left their siblings, that conversation need to be held. I know a lot of times people don't want to talk about, oh, mama, don't talk about that. I want to hear you talk about that. You're going to be here forever. Now, come on. Now, nobody's going to be here forever.
Right, right.
Come on. You know,
Sometimes people think it's bad luck to talk about that, but planning for the future is not bad luck.
That's not bad luck.
Just see it as planning for the future. Because one thing we all are going to do is die someday.
That's right. And
Nobody gets out of this world alive.
that's right. And let's look at it like this. Look at people who have passed things down from 4, 5 generations. Why did they do that? Because they took care of family business. And
Absolutely.
that, and that's what we have to do, take care of family business.
Sarah in the chat room say people were amazed when I say my maternal grandfather has sugar cane in his garden on the lot next to their home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have great memories of sugar cane, Sarah. Um, all throughout the 70s, we would go to Thibodeau, and my grandfather had a huge sugarcane field out behind his house. I don't know why, but they let us have knives to go out and cut our own piece of sugar cane back then. I still have a scar on my thumb from when I was about 7, 8 years old. But it was one of the things I look forward to because back when I was little, I didn't love going to the country. I would love to be in the country right now.
Yes.
But when I was younger, I did not have an appreciation for going out to Thibodeau. But there's so much sugar cane still being grown in
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana. And
Mm-hmm.
some of these companies will lease parts of your land
That's right.
from you
Mm-hmm.
to continue to grow sugar cane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
And
know,
that is so true, Karen. We think about the country. I can really appreciate the city and the country, but I love the country because it's part of my DNA too. And I remember going outside and you would see the lightning bugs, you would see the stars. I mean, there's nothing so beautiful to see than look up in the sky and it feel like you just have a blanket of stars just on top of you. You can see it and it's so beautiful. That fresh air just, it's nothing like it. And so we must appreciate that gift that our ancestors gave us. I just want to say too that my grandfather was one of Emma's children that said he was not going to New Orleans. Your great grandfather, he went to New Orleans, him and his brother Edgar
mm,
Harrell. But my grandfather Jasper stayed in. He said, "No, I'm going to raise my children on this land." So he had some ties to that land. You know, now your great grandfather and all the ones that left and went to New Orleans, they would come up every weekend. Every weekend. They would bring boxes and they would take boxes back. They would bring boxes like oranges or something that they wasn't growing here. And
hmm
in return, they would go back home with packages.
So they kept their connection
They kept their connection
to the land.
to the
You know,
land.
I think about when I met my husband. I guess 40 years ago. It's hard to realize. One of the first things he did was take me to Crystal Springs, Mississippi,
Uh-huh.
to see the land. And, we stayed in the house with his grandmother, and he took me out to go pick blackberries. We brought him back to the house, and his grandmother made blackberry cobbler.
Oh,
Just
wow.
from the very beginning of our relationship
Mm-hmm.
as teenagers, basically, he connected me to that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
land.
Mm-hmm.
And I will forever have those memories
Yeah.
of going out. Because, I'm a city girl. I don't know nothing about picking blackberries.
Yeah. 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 I
But that
remember those
blackberry
days.
cobbler was good.
Yeah, because my mom made blackberry cobbler and it was worth the little red bugs and going out there and just picking those blackberries for my mom to make the best blackberry cobbler that I've ever tasted. But I do want to say it's important that and until we get together, we can do Zoom sessions about it. We
hmm
just need to talk about the importance of taking care of the land. And I know for a fact, I've heard family members say, I don't want anything to do with it like I said, and that complicates the matter because you gotta contact an attorney and just do
Just
what's
sell your
necessary.
portion. Sell your portion. If you know you don't want to have anything to do with it, just sell
Sell
your
it to
portion.
somebody in the family,
In the
though.
family. Sell it to somebody in the family
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
because your ancestors will appreciate that you at least took care to keep it in the family.
And you know what else we must keep in mind is that when large real estate companies are looking for land to develop new communities, they go to the courthouse all the time
Hmm.
and they're looking. All leases, when you go into the courthouse, you're looking at people who are in there looking at the all leases, the mineral rights, and all of that. So that's very important that we look at. You know, we're giving away wealth. When they start drilling all those things, you know, it's because we're not taking care of our business. So we're giving away those rights to the property.
Right. And that's why you have to become knowledgeable
Mm-hmm.
about where the land is. Look at what's being developed nearby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's possible that you might be in an area that's going to become a up and coming community,
That's right.
you know, and so you don't want to sell cheap. Or if there is oil on the land, or I know on the land in Mississippi where my husband's family's from, they have sold gravel. That's, you know, mineral rights, you know, they've
Mm-hmm.
sold gravel off of the land.
Mm-hmm.
That's a way to have income coming in. Um, you know,
And it's important not only to know what's on top of the land, but also what's under.
hmm
You see,
hmm
because that's another thing too. So make sure whatever you do, seek the advice of an attorney. First, have the family meeting. Have the family meeting first, and after you have the family meeting, everybody decide. But what happens is when you start talking money, family members start to pull away. But something you said earlier, Karen, you can sell the timber. That may help take care of the legal fees.
hmm They take care of legal fees, take care of taxes. You just want to make sure that you take care of the family land.
Hmm.
Take care of the family land.
And that's what's important. And to go back to what you said about change, education is change,
hmm
and putting into action is change. You know, um, I must say that the generation prior to us sort of failed us.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was intentionally. I just think that the lack of knowledge on their behalf, you know, um, not really getting together and decide what they should do. Because you see, when you put your business affairs, you're thinking about the next generation. You're thinking about your children. You're thinking about your grandchildren. You're thinking about those unborn. And sometimes a generation now only think about themselves, and they may think that they're doing their children some justice by buying small trinkets. But the real deal is the land, the property,
Absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
property.
I mean,
Mhm.
when you think about how much money you're spending on Christmas and birthdays and proms and sweet 16s, and I mean, people are spending big time money,
Yeah,
money that could have been spent on the lawyer fees for succession.
that's right. That's right. And everyone, if you own anything and you pass away, you know, you need to think about, do I want, do I have a will? Have I put things where I want them to go? How do I want it to go? You know, and that's very important that you do that. I think about a lot of my intellectual properties, you know, doing what I need to do with that. And so things that I want to go in the Amistad and Southeastern, I'm getting it in there right now because I don't want to put that burden on my children. And if my children or my husband do not do what they need to do, it would be thrown away because they have no idea what to do with it,
hmm
you
hmm
know. And I wouldn't be doing the community any justice by not keeping up, not putting that history somewhere where somebody else can learn something from it and get something out of it. And I don't take a moment for granted with that, you know, because I feel good when I know that I have taken care of my business, you know, and that's something else that we see that we just need to do. We need to do better.
And so I just hope people see land ownership and stewardship of the land to
Mm-hmm.
be as much a part of family history as finding ancestors on census records. It's all part of family history.
That is so true, Karen. And next week we'll be talking about, before we close out and let you bring us out, close us out tonight, we'll be talking about the importance of maintaining the cemeteries, as well as placing a headstone on our loved ones' graves. That is so important. I remember a time when every church basically had a deacon board, and the board of deacons would take care of the cemeteries. And those men took that serious. And so it just really sort of bothered me when I ride by a European cemetery and come back to our cemeteries. There's no reason for neglect, like we are neglecting the cemeteries and not doing what we need to do, placing headstones on our deceased loved one's grave.
Antoinette, the name of this show is Nurturing Our Roots,
Yes, it
from
is.
slavery to freedom. It's not called finding our roots, it's nurturing our roots.
Mm-hmm.
That means that there's work that has to be done uh, to to nurture our roots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, taking care of business in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And never ever has it been so important as when you talk about taking care of family property, uh, the grave sites.
Mm-hmm.
All of that's nurturing.
Yes, it is. It's our responsibility. And so we just, and thank you for that, Karen, because you said that in such a beautiful way. It is nurturing, so that our children have something to look forward to tomorrow. You know,
If we don't nurture them, they won't be there.
that's right. And we have to teach them too, um, taking them to the cemetery and let them know how important it is to go and maintain the cemetery. Sometimes you have to go and whitewash the cemetery, but the one thing that's very disrespectful that I see is not putting a headstone on someone's uh, on your loved one, and then I have to say that person's loved one's grave.
I have no memory of, other than when someone died, I have
Mhm.
no memory of going to cemeteries as a child.
Mhm.
And I don't know that I've taken my children. Well, no, I take that back. Once we learned about their history
Yeah.
connected to Jesuit enslavement, but up until that point, it didn't dawn on me to
Mhm.
take my children to cemeteries. I know better now,
Mhm. And I
but
took you to Big Zion where Robert and Alexander and Emma is buried.
you
I
sure
have a
did.
headstone for Emma's grave, but I just need to make sure that I can identify where she's at. And let me just say this: if she had a cement tomb over it, it then sank underground. But I do have a headstone for her grave.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Mm.
Wonderful. Well, I definitely look forward to that topic next week. Because um, sometimes, depending on where your family land is, there are some places where you have small family cemeteries
Yes.
on the family land.
And I was hoping that we would have got our land straight so that we would have had a Harrell cemetery, have a half an acre donated back to for that cause. And I had no problem with donating a half an acre back from what I inherit to for a Harrell cemetery. You know, that's because when we really look at it, it's very important that we start to look at, and we'll talk about that next week. Let's save some of that topic for next week.
Yeah, sounds
So
like a great idea.
yeah, we want
Yeah.
to thank everybody for joining us. So go ahead and close us out, co-hosts.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody who have joined us in the chat room. Thank you for everyone who's watching this show afterwards. We are here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time. If We would love it if you would comment down below, hit subscribe to Nurturing Our Roots, and hit the bell so you can be notified of our next show and when we go live. We will look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.